Swami Paramatmananda Namaha. अथ ध्यानम् पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितपुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणी भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् बद्ध्वानुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। Sahana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my presenting? Are you presenting?
No, you can present. No problem.
Can you present? I'm not. I'm on phone.
67, no?
67. Yes.
Yeah, Sahana, is it visible?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry if there is a background noise. There is some construction happening around. Yeah. First of all, namaste everyone, and a happy new year to all of you. This is our first session in 2025. Yeah. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches us not only philosophy, it is the practical way of life, right? It reminds us how to perform our duties with determination and detachment, to seek knowledge and stay grounded amidst all the life challenges. So, as we recite and contemplate on the shlokas today, let us keep in mind how these truths resonate with our personal journeys. Yeah. So, let me begin with today's shloka from Sankhya Yoga. We are doing a verse 67. Yeah? Salutations to our gurus, Adi Shankaracharya and Swami Paramatmananda. So I'll start with the recitation. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmanonu videyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavam imam vasi. So in shloka 67 and 68, Lord Krishna is emphasizing on sense control. If sense control is not there, Dhamma is not there. Remember Dhamma when we did Tattvabodha, when we were doing Sadhana Chatushtaya, we were Shama, Dhamma and Shatka Sampatti we discussed. Shama is controlling of the mind. Dhamma is controlling of the senses. So he says, if sense control is not there, it will not allow Atma Jnana to arise in the mind. Yeah. So he says, Indriyanam vicharatam. Our indriyas, panchendriyas, all these five sense organs, the smell, touch, hearing, vision, and the taste. All these five senses are all the time charatam, means they're grazing. They're constantly grazing. So, what are they grazing? What are they grazing for? They are grazing for sense objects. Like if you leave the cow in a green field, it goes on eating all kind of grasses, smells all kind of plants, whatever is available there, right? Same way, this says, Indriyanam hi charata. All these indriyas are grazing. Like our eyes is all the time grazing for and looking out, what can I behold in my vision and draw pleasure. And ears are all the time grazing for some nice music or sounds, melody, this and that, lot of things, right? And taste, tongue is all the time grazing for varieties of dishes, varieties of food, and speaking all kinds of things, right? He says all these five senses are all the time grazing for sense objects. Yanmanonu vidheyate. Can you go to the next slide, Uma? Yanmanonu vidheyate tadasya harati prajna. So, if our mind focuses on even just one of the senses, forget about all the five senses. If it gives its consciousness or concentrates and gives its attention to even one of the sense, what happens? Tadasya harati prajna. Immediately, our intelligence is hijacked. It is stolen. It is taken away. How? They say, Vayur navam ivambasi. Just like the breeze on the ocean or the wind sweeps away the boat like that. Then, how should the boat be placed? If we don't want the boat to be swept away by a wind, how it has to be placed? It has to be anchored. If the boat is not anchored, just any wind or a breeze can sweep it away. It can take the boat in any direction, right? So likewise, if our senses are not anchored, if our mind, mana, is not anchored, then our intelligence is hijacked. It is taken away. So now, then what is the anchoring for the mind? It has to be strongly anchored. Otherwise, all these five sense organs, these five horses can drive this mind in any direction, right? So it has to be strongly anchored. So, what is the anchor for the mind? The Shastra says mantra is the anchor for the mind. Man means mind. Tra is trayate iti, that which liberates. That is mantra. Mantra, that sound which liberates our mind or freezes our mind from all the materialistic thoughts for the sense gratification. That is mantra. So, what it says is it is very important to control all the senses. Even one of the sense, if the mind starts following, it can misdirect our goal, right? So it is not only these panchendriyas, even karmendriyas. All these 10 sense organs has to be under control for us to reach the ultimate goal of our life. Otherwise, they will keep pulling us in all directions. That is the meaning of this shloka. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. If anyone wants to add anything, please. Yeah, I'm done, Uma. I think Ajit can take over. Yeah.
Anand will be doing the next, right? Yeah. Anand, you're on mute.
I am so sorry. I just kept asking, can someone see my slide? Sorry. Yeah, Sahana, thank you so much. Slides are visible, right? Oh, no.
Yeah.
I don't know, it says the slide sharing has some. You're good now? Are you able to see my slides?
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay, great. Sorry. Yeah, Sahana, firstly, thank you for leading into that. But yeah, and just continuing from. So I'll try to recite the verse 68. It is just in continuation with regard to the sense organs and the control on that. So the shloka goes like this.
Anand, we are not able to hear you well.
Uh-oh. Are you able to hear me now? Yeah? Okay. So the shloka goes like this. Tasmadasya mahabaho nigrante sarvasaha indriyani yarthebhyaha tasya prajna pratishtitaha. Ajit, I'm sure I must have made mistakes, but if you could just repeat it, could you say this for me, please?
Yeah. तस्मादद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणि इन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So just looking at the literal meaning of this, it says that it very clearly says that one who has restrained the senses for their objects, where Krishna is telling Arjuna, in fact, he says, mighty Arjuna. So one who can have this restraint over the sense from their objects, the sense comes from the objects, right, is firmly established in transcendental knowledge. Sounds very simple, but when you actually look at it, of course, our senses have the power to destabilize the mind, and it holds us back from making the right judgment, right? And from what this shloka says, he says the best way to control the senses is to practice your own swadharma, right? Where you take your ideal to a higher ideal. I mean, that's what it says, right? If you don't want to, when you stray and think about a material object, it will lead to a lot of other things which will take us away from the goal that we are trying to pursue, right? And I think the best description of this entire shloka was if you look at a ship without a rudder, right? It'll blow whichever way the wind blows. So if you let our senses, go anywhere, and the ship being our mind, our wisdom also goes here and there. So that's in brief about this shloka. I know I had to speak for 20 minutes.
I think that was beautiful. That pictorial representation said it all.
Very nice.
Yeah, very good.
And the thing of, destabilizing the mind, that word.
Yeah, correct.
That, no, I mean, it's a
The
very
shlokas,
direct.
the
Yeah.
shloka was very, very simple, right? When I read about this a lot from various different gurus. I mean, of course, my gratitude to all those people that I read or learned from. It is pretty deep. And in fact, yesterday I was telling Vidya that I think Krishna knew how we would be, or our future, his future would be. Is he kept telling the same thing in different ways, right? Different ways. Like if you actually look at what Sahana uh, spoke about in the previous shloka to here, it's a thin line, right? But it has its own meaning, and so does this.
Right.
Yeah, the point is to, I think, drill down on the aspect of having control on the senses. One more thing that I read and heard about this afternoon, not very sure where the source is, but it says that it's not that a person with intellect or a person who's following Swadharma uh, will be devoid of senses. He will have senses, but it is going to be very clear. It is not that he's going to eat sand instead of food, right? But he's going to utilize it only for that much and won't stray. I think it was very beautifully said. If I find that link, I will certainly share it with the group. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Anand. I'll just share my screen. I have only a couple of slides, and one of the slides has actually been made by Asha. So I'm just using her slide only because I don't have any. Thanks to Asha for that. Is my screen visible? Is the screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Screen is visible.
Yeah. So salutations to all the gurus, and I'm not naming any one guru, all of them, I think, to all the gurus. And I'll just start with a small chant. स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Yeah, so we are in the 69th verse. So prior to this, what has happened is actually this is again a turning point in Bhagavad Gita. So 55 to 58 is considered to be the what do you call Sthita Pragya Lakshanani. That means the Lakshanas of a Sthita Pragya. That means how they are is what is described from 55 to 57. Sorry, 55 to 57. 58 all the way what we have heard till 68, what we heard last, are all the sadhanas that we all have to do to reach that state. So that is called Sthita Pragya Sadhanani. So there are two, Sthita Pragya Lakshanani and Sthita Pragya Sadhanani. So again from 69 onwards, what has happened is Sri Krishna again shifts the focus back into 69, 70, 71, 72, all will be Sthita Pragya Lakshanani. Again, they are talking about the Lakshanas or the characteristics of an enlightened person. So till now, you would have heard all the control of the senses, control of the mind. These are all almost like practices for which are qualities of a enlightened person, or practices for somebody who is wanting to attain that. So the shloka goes like, Ya nisha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagriti sanyami yasyam jagriti bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. So the meaning is that which is night to all beings, in that the self-controlled awakes, and that in which all beings are awake is night to the self-seeing Muni. So it's like, there's a, what do you say, there's kind of a paradox of opposites are being taken here. So it sounds a little, what do you say, paradoxical, and there's night and day has been used here. So if you just break up the shloka, it is like Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam. That means that aspect of reality which is treated as darkness by all beings. So what does it mean? It is uh, what it means is Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam. Sarva Bhutanam means all the people. Typically the bhutas, which is all the unenlightened person, people who are like us, like you, me, all of us. They don't see the aspect of reality beyond what is visible. That means beyond our senses, beyond our mind, beyond our likes, dislikes, We don't, the question itself doesn't become real, like what is God, what is my true nature, all those kind of questions. Why suffering? Can I transcend suffering? These things are absolutely not even, what do you say, in the radar itself. And that is the, because it is hidden in darkness, and that is exactly what is the symbolic meaning of nisha. Ya nisha sarva. So that darkness is what is being explained here, that aspect of reality which is treated as darkness. So for that person it doesn't even become real. Tasyam Jagriti Sanyami. In that, so what do they see? What do people like all of us we see? We see this world as it is, and we see with our own separation from separate ego, people, likes, dislikes, pleasures, hankering after all likes, dislikes, pleasures, and all that. But in that same thing, Tasyam Jagriti Sanyami, that means the self-controlled awakes in that. They see the reality behind the names and forms. Actually, they, while they see what is happening, everything is, while it is real, they see something beyond that, and that is what is the real thing. For them, this aspect of the ego, the likes, dislikes, everything is actually darkness. Tasyam Jagriti, they awake in that. They awake and see the reality behind that. Yasyam Jagriti Bhutani, that's the third line. That is that aspect of appearance where people see plenty of light. That means the worldly names, forms, likes, dislikes. Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe. That means the yogi sees only darkness there. That means yogi, while perceiving names and forms, is able to see through them. So while there is a this thing of opposite that is being used of day and night, it doesn't mean, so one, there are multiple wrong ways of maybe understanding this. There could be a misinterpretation that might happen, thinking that an enlightened person sees the world differently. And in Matrix movie, for example, in that end, the way all that zero one start appearing in front of Keanu Reeves, that's not what it means. The enlightened person also sees the world, also sees everything, but they see something beyond. They see the oneness, they see the reality, and they see something beyond the likes, dislikes, pleasures, and the ego and all that. So that's exactly the meaning here. So primarily there is a aspect of day and night that has been used. So I think if you were to elaborate, you have to look at it from a jnani and an agyani perspective. So Agyani sees appearances, all the things that are there, and which is apparent, which is real for us, and we don't see anything beyond that. And so for such a person, if you start talking about God, others, they'll say, where is it? I mean, I don't see any of those. I mean, it doesn't make any difference to me. So whatever you see is the reality for them. Whereas a Jnani, the understanding of the reality while they see the names and forms is the true thing. So like each one of them you can see Anitya, Nitya, that is perishable. The Ajnani sees only the perishable, the things which change, the things which die, and everything is, that kind of a vision is there. Whereas for a Jnani, the permanence, the oneness, and the things which is beyond that is what is actually visible. Similarly, the Dvaita, Advaita part, the separateness is something, separatedness, which is something which is there for an Ajnani. For the enlightened, it is a oneness that they see. Sense pleasures, impulse driven, the mundane worldly affairs are all what the Jnani actually sees, whereas restraint, discrimination, God realization, which is completely not available, or maybe something that has not been become real for an Ajnani, is what is real for a Jnani. So this, what do you call, the stark um, difference has been highlighted so that we can move from an Ajnani state to a Jnani state. We have to really understand the paradoxes of the opposites here. So I think if you see, even if you're in our day-to-day life, if you see, it's all about opposites, right? I mean, we see when we look at the sky, we see a blue sky, but we know it's not blue, but it's actually colorless, but we see. So what we see, so the difference between appearance and reality is something that is a first step. So, and this has been, if you look at it, even Bradley, even Western philosophy, or if you take Christian mysticism, if you say Hinduism, everything, the appearance and the reality aspect has been spoken of. So Bradley, for example, says what what appears is not real, and reality never appears. So Similarly, for example, there was a beautiful definition by this is just to highlight the what do you call the paradoxes of opposite. Swami Ranganathananda defines spirituality. What is spirituality? So when it was, so he said, when I close my eyes, I find peace within, and when I open my eyes, my question is, what can I do for you? While for a common man, it is just the opposite. When I close my eyes, there's a lot of disturbance. All the disturbances will come. And when I open my eyes, it's not what can I do for you, it's what can I get from this world. So it's this, this paradox. So this is the aspect which is actually highlighted as part of the shloka. There's another very interesting thing, which is, the Bhairava aspect of Shiva, for example. So Bhairava aspect of Shiva is so Bhairava is nothing but the controller, the creator, the sustainer, and the destructor of this entire universe. That is how the Bhairava concept is there in Kashmir Shaivism. So, the concept of the third eye, which is there, so it is said that when the third eye opens, when the eye opens, the world disappears, and when the eye closes, the world appears. Again, there is a there is a paradox, right, of opposites. This eye, the third eye, is the eye of knowledge. So when the eye of knowledge opens, this whole world disappears in the sense of the reality aspect goes away, and they see the reality. The real Shiva comes. And when the eye closes, this world comes up. Shiva manifests into this world. Shiva disappears and manifests as this world. That's how the whole aspect of opposite is. So for an enlightened person, irrespective of whether the world appears or not appears, they see the reality. So that is the beauty of this. Yeah, so I think that's all on my side. Just stop sharing. Yeah, I think we have plenty of time for question answers.
I think today was a very, very nice, crisp, and a wonderful presentation. Excuse me if there is a background noise. Am I clear?
No, you're clear. Yeah.
All right. So I'll just kind of put all the three concepts that we spoke about right now, and then we'll open it up for everybody's discussion. Right. So what have we spoken today? And there are few things I'm going to open to each one of you in terms of how do we interpret this. What are we trying to say is that there are sense objects around us, and we are given 5 sense organs, and we are generally outwardly driven, which goes to clearly say that we will be attracted to the sense objects, to our sense organs, and as a result of which our mind will remain scattered, because there is always one or the other sense objects that will attract us, and that is going to lead to what we call typically raga and dvesha. Either we are going to get attracted towards something, or we are going to be repelled by something, which means our mind will always remain scattered. And someone whose mind always remains scattered, it is very difficult for that individual to have Brahmanyanam, isn't it? So what Ajit was saying in the end, that an enlightened person or a Sthita Prajna has the ability to see beyond what everybody else can see. So what does everybody see? Everybody sees name and forms. How do we end up seeing name and forms? Because we are using our sense organs. But if we have to see the reality, we cannot use our sense organs to see the reality, because sense organs are basically there to take us away from the reality, which means that somewhere there has to be something where the sense organs needs to be, for the lack of better word, controlled, right? And I'm going to come to this concept of controlling, or how does it work. But conceptually, I'm just trying to make sense of what all three of you have spoken today. So if at all we want to be Sthita Prajna, if at all we want to see the reality behind all the appearances, if at all we want to basically be that light we are able to see the existence behind all the named forms, for that we need a calm mind. And to have a calm mind, we need to restrain our sense organs, and therefore sense objects will not sort of sway us in all the directions. Is that what we have spoken today between Sahana, Anand, and Ajit
Yeah.
on a holistic way?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So this is one part, that why we need to, only if at all we are interested in becoming Sthita Prajna, this makes sense. If we are not interested in Sthita Prajna, if we do not want to be that person who wants to see the reality and be in this state of enlightenment, this may not make sense. For those, it certainly makes sense. That's point number one. Point number two is, how do we therefore take care of our mind? Or it's practically not possible to take the diversions that we have from the sense organs and such objects, because we are all the time bombarded by sense objects, but from the time we get up to the time we go off to sleep. So there are two or three things that you spoke between Anand and Sahana. One thing which Sahana said, that if you really want to anchor your mind, do mantra, right? So she very beautifully said that mantra. So first thing I remember, man, I didn't know antra. What you said something that, Sahana. What was that?
I said mantra. Man is mind.
Yeah.
Trayate iti, that which liberates.
All right, prayati iti. So if we at all do mantra chanting, it sort of helps us to manage our mind. That's one piece which Sahana said we can do that. What Anand beautifully said, that if at all we have to, then we have to anchor ourselves. How do we anchor ourselves? We anchor ourselves in our Swadharma, and basically offering ourselves to the higher order rather than going after material things. So we constantly remind ourselves that what is my Swadharma, instead of seeing what I can take. That's number one. So what is my Swadharma? Always reminding myself, what is my Swadharma? What is my Swadharma? Otherwise, it's very easy to say, hey, I want to be a billionaire. I want to be like Ambani's. I want to be the best player. I want to create a business. I want to have the best family. We will always, but somewhere we need to tell ourselves, look, is that my Swadharma? So that is number one. And number two, there is a tendency, which I love the way Ajit brought out the concept of Swami Ranganathan. He just told it very simply, but I feel today for me, that's the greatest thing. That what do you mean? Are you there? How much have you advanced in spirituality? It simply means when you close your eyes, you basically find tremendous amount of peace, which means you are content, and your mind is under, mind listens to you. Only then, when you close your eyes, you will find peace. Only when you're content or your mind listens to you. And when you open your eyes, you basically say, what is it that I can do for you? I mean, when you open your eyes, you are basically a karmi yogi. You are basically offering. You are full. You are full. You are complete. Uh, you're rich, and you're always ready to give. And when you close your eyes, you're content. So I think this is phenomenal. Very simply said, Ajit. But to me, that's class. What Swami Ranganathan said. That's class. And but generally, what happens to us is when we close our eyes, what happens? It becomes very difficult to be with closed eyes for half an hour to 1 hour. After 10 minutes, we'll find it's very difficult to be in that state, right? And when we open our eyes, what do we all do? What is it in for me? What can I get? How do I make this relationship work for me? What is self-love? How can I get more and more and more and more? How can we accumulate more? How can we have everything? The feeling of entitlement comes in. And here Swami Ranganathan is saying exactly the opposite. Beautiful. So coming back, I'm just connecting with what Anand is saying, that if at all you need to anchor yourself, constantly remind yourself of why you are here, your capability, and understand your Swadharma, and two, offer yourself to the higher forces rather than trying to accumulate more and more and more and more. There's nothing wrong in accumulation, but it should be a byproduct of the work that you do rather than that being your final goal. So this is in thing that we have spoken so far. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Completely.
All right. Now, couple of points that I wanted to sort of bring the focus of discussion on. So I was looking at Ajit's slide where he has mentioned the word restraint. Now the restraint can be a double-edged sword. Now there is one restraint that comes through understanding that automatically you don't feel like doing something. You sort of know that, I mean, there is no compulsion, there is no pull and push. And there is another restraint where you say, I better do it, otherwise I'll be a sinner. I better do it, otherwise I'm a materialist. I better do it, otherwise I don't know what people will say. Now, how do we know which is the kind of restraint that we are following in our life? And how do we dissect this? How do we do it? Because this is the practical challenge. Because as soon as you open our eyes, there are sense objects, there are sense organs. And let's accept it that we all feel incomplete and we want something to complete us. It's very easy to feel attracted. It's very easy to take more. And suddenly when you're putting certain control, is that a restraint that is coming from I should be doing it? Or is it coming from understanding how do we distinguish this and how do we make sense of what has been told in Bhagwat Gita? This is my question to all of you right now. If there's something that you would like to add, more than happy to take it forward.
Yeah. So can I start? Yeah. So very valid point. I think that is something which is the real, what do you call, understanding or real introspection that one needs to do when we are in a spiritual path. That are we restraining and putting force and suppressing something, or are we really doing it out of a will, or a stronger will is coming, which is basically helping us and pushing us do that. So it is. So my take would be, practically, if we have to do that, it has to be a mix of both, is what I would suggest. What I would probably think will work. It can neither be that we will be completely motivated, that we will be all the time doing it out of will because we want to do it, and it will neither be the other way where you're completely what do you say, doing it out of restraint. Both will not work. The first one will not work because if you are already in that state, then you don't really need to do anything. I mean, you're already there. So I think there has to be we have to exercise certain, what do you call, self control in terms of um, uh, areas where we have to, there's a fake it till you make it, right? I think there has to be a kind of, so there are things that we know. Say for example, I think that example itself, like for example, if you know that going to a mall, and if somebody is really liking certain things and has a tendency to purchase something from a mall, now I decide not to go to a mall in order to buy. What you're doing actually is you're cutting off that source by which it can actually trigger. So it is a kind of a restraint only, but it's a different kind of a restraint wherein you're exercising a, because you know that you're not reached a stage wherein if you go there you might purchase or you might indulge, you might eat, you might, so you move away from that. And so that's a kind of a self control which I probably feel is right. But to what extent, again, that's the, where do we draw a line? I think that is a very personal thing. Everybody has to decide for themselves and probably have a very close torch shining on themselves to see, are we suppressing, are we going into a state where we are denying ourselves and our lives becoming miserable, or are we really doing it out of probably uh, I mean, at the end of the day, when I do that, as you also said, when I close my eyes, is it all happy? So I think by restraining uh, or by indulging, after indulging, is it giving more happiness, or by restraining, And by not indulging in it, is it giving me more happiness? I think that is something which will decide probably. I don't know. Again, it's very personal, very, it will depend for, so it can never be said that if I am following something, others also should be following that particular thing, because it has to be defined and probably, followed in a very personal basis.
Absolutely right, Rajit. Thanks for sharing, because there's no right and wrong here. It's just so everybody have their own journey, and what we're doing is we're sharing our thoughts. This may
Right.
work for me, this may not, but it may not work for others, and we are happy to sort of say, hey, this does not work for me, this works for me, and that's the fact that we are trying to share.
So I had some thoughts here. Um, so the thing that I wanted to talk about was, if you take any instance of, forget about the spiritual insights and realization from spiritual insights, right? Even if you were to take a normal conflict between the intellect and the mind, the intellect is saying that, this, you should eat healthy. The intellect is saying you should eat healthy. The mind wants to eat on all unhealthy food. Uh, now, how can you arrive at something? Should you just let one take over the other completely? Is that something sustainable over a long period? Maybe you can do it for a week, for a 10 days, for 1 month. By the end of it, maybe you'll be very frustrated. Uh, right? So, but having said that, don't you know that you should eat healthy food? Yeah, you know. But do you still have that craving? Yes, you have. So, there is some amount of restraint that has to come in. You can't just say, okay, let me just go eat all the unhealthy food that is out there. But so what you can do, at least that's what I feel, that my personal experiences, you can give it some tidbits. You don't starve it completely. You know that what is it that you can sustain for, and maybe you can kind of keep stretching it till it becomes a habit. At the same time, I don't feel a 0-1 approach is the best approach, completely cutting out something from your life. Instead, I have always felt that giving the monster uh, some things, okay, you want to eat unhealthy food, okay, let me just indulge it for a day in a week, but remaining 6 days, I'm going to eat healthy food. Might be a better way to channelize that. And I think the same thing goes for any kind of conflict. So the thing that we are talking about when we say don't let sense organs go everywhere and let us put a restraint, I think a similar kind of conflict is there as well. I mean, the example that I took is just a conflict between the intellect and the mind in a very worldly sense. But even otherwise, I'm sure that a similar conflict will arise, because somewhere I feel when you suppress it too much, you end up thinking more about it. So if you are ending up thinking more about it and constantly just imagining, in case of the unhealthy food, constantly imagining the things that you want to eat outside, then you have defeated the whole purpose, right? So I think that is where the balance lies, for me at least. That's my experience.
Yeah, it's like, trying to fast and then thinking about food the whole day. It's like that.
True.
Indulgence can be actual. Even if you indulge in your mind, that is also indulgence in a way.
Exactly. Not going to the mall, but
Yeah,
thinking that,
Thinking about, online
yeah,
shopping.
exactly.
yeah, that's better than, I mean, at times go there and try to exercise that.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
there, try to exercise the restraint versus
Yeah.
don't
But
go
what
there.
Ajit said is also true. It
Yeah.
can't be that one size fits all type.
But don't go there, sit at home and keep
Mm.
cursing yourself for not having gone.
Yeah. No, but
That's
sometimes what happens is when you don't go, it's not in sight, not in mind happens, and then
yeah.
something else gets replaced. So even Sri
Exactly.
Krishna in chapter 3, they will say the control starts from the senses. I think it's easier to control the senses first, and then the mind. So basically, if you starve the senses, that is easier, and then you control the mind. If you try to directly attack the mind, it becomes a lot more difficult, is what is said.
Yeah.
I had another question actually. I think one of the shlokas was hinting at this. how does a person even turn to these concepts, the spiritual concepts? Because when a person is caught up so much in daily reality as he perceives it or she perceives it, mm, isn't there some trigger which should happen in one's life to even take a change or a plunge, and start thinking on different terms? I mean, thinking about sense objects, or sthita pragna, any of these concepts. And generally, I mean, I was not even aware, frankly, when I started. It was just some interest to know something that I got into all this, frankly. So, don't you think this transition or this journey itself is a very tough thing to start with? I don't know. This might be a personal experience for each one.
Yes, it's a grace. I mean, I sincerely believe that it just happens one fine day. I mean, it has no logic. One fine day, it just all starts making sense.
Yeah, and it could be that, as Prema said, very relative to her, it was an interest to know something. In somebody else's case, it can be some trigger point, something that
Exactly.
not so good, or you know something that a dejection. I mean, anything that can be, or it can be something good also. It need not have to be, I mean, the why
When,
me question need not have to always come for the
yeah.
negative part of it. Okay.
When the time comes, the time comes.
Yeah. For
Yeah,
her,
I
it was out of
agree.
interest. For somebody else, it could be the trigger point could be something else. And
Yeah, it
it's
Yes.
like
need
the
not be
flash
a
in the pan,
negative.
that.
Yeah,
Need not be negative. Yeah, need
Yeah.
not
yeah.
be.
It need not be a negative experience
Yeah.
which leads to something like this. Yeah.
Yeah. And what Asha was talking about, mind and intellect and the food part of it, is very relatable to that shloka in where Duryodhana tells, I know what dharma is, but I can't follow it. And I know what adharma is, and I can't resist from doing it.
Yeah.
The mind, the food part of it, or the mind intellect fight. I mean, when Duryodhana is asked, that's what he tells actually.
I know what is right, but I can't, I don't want to do it.
Do
I
it,
know what
yeah.
is wrong, but I can't
Wrong. But
stop
I
myself
can't,
from do it.
yeah, I can't stop myself from doing it. That's what Duryodhana tells.
Yeah.
So there's no point in, you people telling me anything.
Yeah, I mean, technically we know everything, right? We
Yeah,
know. It's
yeah.
not like everything is new,
The
but we
moment you
know, but
said
we
the
can't do
food,
it.
the junk, the food, the junk, no?
Yeah, the other point I wanted to make was, every person need not go through all the scriptures, or understand all these concepts to practice something.
Yes.
I had a very recent experience. I'll take 2 minutes to just talk about this. We were traveling in Vande Bharat very recently, and the person on the other side of the aisle, he had such a terrible experience. I don't know, after knowing all these aspects, if I could have reacted the way he did. The person who was collecting up the dinner plates lost control, and the whole lot landed at his seat, on his side, on his clothes. And I didn't hear him raise his voice even for a second. It took them at least 20 minutes or 25 minutes to have sanity set in. You can't believe it. He was standing in such an awkward position. He could neither sit nor walk out. He was full of it. It was such a terrible thing. But, I mean, the equanimity with which he took it, he didn't even show his frustration at the attender. I was just zapped, I'll tell you. This experience changed me more than any of my understanding of so many classes, I think. It didn't look like he was full of Upanishads or anything. But see, I think there is something else also. That's what the point I'm trying to make is only that. Only knowledge and intellectual knowledge will not help. And how much you can internalize, in every situation, especially challenging situations.
Absolutely, no doubt about it.
I mean,
But
there was so much to learn in that 15 minutes.
so that's one thing really I think which there is no one path. I think that's one of the most beautiful teachings that I've ever come across from the Ramakrishna mission. Infinite paths to infinite to the reality. I think that infinite paths thing, somebody could just be in the moment, realize it now, and say this is what it is. It is a now, the power of now, as Eckhart Tolle also mentions. The whole Eckhart Tolle's path also, if you see the now, or maybe any other paths, which is very direct path also, that is one path. Many people could adopt that. There are so many paths. One path doesn't negate the other. I think that is one of the most beautiful learning, which is basically every path, the truth is one, paths are many. So absolutely right. I mean, it's not just knowledge, or it's not just that one this thing is there, but what has been spoken of, probably in the scriptures and other things, is something which is like a baseline, which is most common people can adopt, which is like control of the senses, or certain things are, or purity of the mind, so that the truth can actually descend and actually bring about that change, is something which is like a precondition, or probably some things which one can start working on. So I think there has to be a ground that has to be set. So maybe the person you're talking about has that ground set, or for all that that person would be doing spiritual practices, would be, so we really don't know where that person is coming from. But yes, I think the most important thing, what you said, absolutely right, is it's not just intellectual knowledge, it's not just about any of those. It's
I think the life lessons teach a lot.
yeah. It's those 100 paths. I mean, there are so many paths, that, and all paths are right. So we cannot say that this path is the only right. So I think I think that's one of the biggest problems, that all this, the in many of the gurus, I will not name them, but many of the gurus, when they say this path is the only right path, they negate all others. I think that's a big problem. So
Yeah, many times our children teach us. So,
yeah, very much, very much.
mm.
True.
Perfect. So we had a nice discussion. Few points from what I understood. Uh, so one thing I have understood very clearly. So just Prema said asked that what puts us into this path. Only we know, and most of the times we don't know. We assume that either a pain or a contradiction, or some sort of a concept or confusion has. We really don't know. For all you know, we are born in a family, we are automatically put on this path. For all you know, we have Purva Janma Sanskaras, so we are automatically attracted towards it. What our intellectual mind is doing is giving reasons. We honestly don't know. We don't know why we show up to these
Absolutely.
classes. Right?
Absolutely.
We don't know that in spite of so much of busy schedule, we still show up for these sessions. We don't know. It just pulls us here. Why it pulls, we don't know. And honestly, I've stopped asking this question. It just is. I am just here. Why? I don't know. Why the fire is hot? I don't know. Why the world is there? I don't know. Why there is suffering? I don't know. It is there. That's my understanding, right? And if we are able to clearly say this is the reason, it's our intellect making stories. And please understand, most of the times our intellect is only making stories. It really doesn't know. It's a good storyteller. It's like a public relation guy in any corporate. Whether the results are good or bad, they will create a story. They'll create a story why the result is bad. They'll create a story why the result is good. But actually, the public relation guy will know nothing. And that works with our intellect as well. It just gives us stories most of the time. So that's my understanding. Second understanding is, as how do we learn? How do we grow? I mean, of course, Ajit, you're right. You're right that there is no one path. Intellect is equally important, and so is experience. We cannot say that only experience matters. No, we cannot say that only intellect matters. I mean, it's like saying that I'll only have a protein diet. Please understand that the world is made with so many complicated things together. Our body needs different kind of food. Some may need a specific kind of a food depending upon the activities which we have. And so therefore, some may be predisposed to action, some may be predisposed to knowledge, some may be predisposed to bhakti, Some may be predisposed to meditation, and therefore all the paths are valid. For us, maybe intellect may not work. So be it. It's absolutely fine.
True.
For us, only intellect works. Perfect. Doesn't really matter because I am predisposed basis my own samskaras, basis my own personal. So all paths are equally valid in my mind. Right? And the last point I just want to make here is, again, when we are talking about suppression, repression, see, if you remember, there is something called buddhi, the power of discretion. And that discretion is the one which says, shall we restrain going to mall or shall we go to mall and restrain myself there? There's a discretion inside each one of us.
Right.
And what scriptures are trying to tell that power of discretion is there in each one of us, but it gets overshadowed because of our manas, because of so many thoughts and so many emotions which are like constantly struggling with each other. And that discretion doesn't come out. When the discretion is sharp, nobody needs to tell us what is right and wrong. Even if you look at the human evolution, the entire information of evolution is encoded in our genes. Because if we have survived today, we have survived the billions of years of evolution. So we have that knowledge. It's just so how do we access it? And the best way to access that knowledge is when the emotions, the ideas, the rights and the wrongs wither away and our intellect starts shining, our buddhi starts shining. And when the buddhi shines, nobody needs to tell us what is the right path. And I think all these paths, whether it is karma yoga, whether it is jnana yoga, whether it is bhakti yoga, whether it is Raj Yoga, all of them are just trying one thing. Depending upon the mind type, how do we silence it a bit and allow the intellect, allow the buddhi to shine and take that individual to the merge? This is a little bit of my understanding of what I have seen so far. Perfect. This was a great session today. It's anything that we all need to add. Let's go ahead and add it. And we have another couple of minutes and then we close the session today.
Actually, in Swami Paramatmananda's notes, that's what he tells. The whole thing of Vedanta, all the scriptures, is neither to change the world nor to change the people around it or the people in it. It is, the whole thing is to change the way we view the world.
I don't know whether it is coincidence. I spoke about higher ideal, moving to a higher ideal, things like that. One thing that kept coming to me was, why is the restaurant in ISKCON called Higher Taste? Right? It's called Higher Taste.
ISKCON.
Yeah. Higher ideal, higher taste.
Perfect. We'll close the session. Or either Uma or Asha, please.
I had one question, if it is okay. If we have,
Yes,
are we already out of time?
No, we have.
8:30. So it's a question, maybe not a quick answer, maybe, but something that I've been. So, Raga Dvesha, we've been hearing, right? Control Raga Dvesha. And I think last session or something, even Naveen had mentioned how he kind of overcame his aversion to curd and all that, right? Which is great if it is a material thing, I feel, right? If it's a sense thing, you either abstain from it or you go and indulge or whatever, right? But how do you, there are so many raga dveshas in our head. It is towards people, you like some people, you don't like some people. What do you do? Like, do you stop those thoughts from coming? Do you not think those thoughts? I mean, I'm actually, sometimes I'm struggling with that aspect, right? As far as sense organ control goes, it's kind of a little bit of a straighter line. It's kind of understandable how you can go about it. You don't indulge or you keep away from something, but mind still thinks. And you don't need to be in a particular, your mind doesn't really need to be in contact with a sense organ for you to go into different directions. It's not just for things we like, consumption based. It's about, you might just like certain people and you might not like certain people. Suddenly interaction with some people puts you on a discomfort or something like that, right? So and you don't like that person. So how do you even approach this? Like, we talk about this is what we should do, but how we should do this, right? So I'm still looking for ideas on thoughts, what has worked for people in this.
Yeah, in a way, Dhamma is okay to practice, but Shama is something that doesn't come into our control that easily. And a lot of times we hate people and we don't know why we hate people. That is a big, mystery. Just like that, you have that, aversion from such people. That is also a big question mark sometimes. I mean, sometimes something has happened and you hate such people is okay. But there are times you don't know where that hatred is or that discomfort is coming from, but it is there. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. I mean, even this is people, right? But let's take simple things which on face value look, clear. I want a clean house, and I'm cleaning all the day, right? Let's assume, right? This is a likes or a preference. So, but what is wrong in that? Should I try to remove that? How to remove that? Should I purposely not clean my house? Right? I just don't get, so many ragadveshas are there. Some are people oriented, some are habits oriented, and not all habits can be classified as this is not desirable. So, how do you even overcome some of these preferences that you have? Right. So, I'm a little lost in at least the mind part of it. I know there are certain things which are controllable via the sense organs, but there are so many which are not, and which are just you, right? Or maybe it's your narrative. Nobody told that, nobody has put it in your head. It is just that, right? You're just born like that.
Swabhava.
Swabhava. So
Swabhava.
Yeah.
Sanskara.
how do you
Swabhava.
cut the cord?
I have two thoughts here. If I can share, I don't know how it will sit with you guys, but this is just my thoughts. So let me share that and you can see. I think having preferences is a normal part of our life. So it's not about whether I should have it or I should not have it. It's more about the preferences I have, how much of a suffering is it creating for me? That is where the focus should be, I guess. So if you want to have a clean house, it's not that it's wrong to have a clean house or it's right to have a clean house. There's nothing black and white there. But you having that preference, how strongly do you have it and how much of a suffering is that creating for you in your own life is what I tend to look at. If it is too obsessive and if it is creating more suffering for me, then I am creating more ragas and dveshas for myself by holding on to one thing. Right?
True, but then how do you let it go?
The more you focus on not being on the lateral, right? Or on the extremes that I have to have it this way. I have a preference that it is nice to have this, but however, sometimes if it's not, can I learn to be okay with that? Can I not be obsessed with whatever I want as a preference? It's like same as belief system, right? Like I have some strong beliefs about certain things, that this is how things should work. And sometimes they go that way, sometimes they don't. Can I learn to be somewhere in the middle that, I would prefer it this way, but sometimes if it doesn't happen, it's okay. So can I build that mindset? Can I come to that acceptance? Because 90% of what we don't like in others is a strong projection of ourselves. There's the strong belief that, the soul knows only you. And how you look at others is all a projection of your inner thoughts and feelings onto others, whether you like it or you don't like it. If something is sitting well with you, you like it. If it is something is not sitting well with you, you don't like it, whether it's people, person, things, or anything. So 99% of the times, it's all about the projection I have on the world. So just coming to that acceptance that this is my projection basically of everything else gives a sense of control whether I can do something about it or not. Because if it's within me, I am to some extent possibly capable of handling it in certain ways. Now it's in my control. But if I say that person is like that, this person is like that, this thing is like that, and it feels totally out of control. And the frustration, irritation just grows. Right. So in my challenging situations, this is what I try to apply. What is it that is within me that is being projected so strongly out there that it is causing so much of suffering to me? Right. Whether it is my values, whether it is my preferences, whether it is my understanding of how things should be. And when I understand this and I try to bring in some empathy for myself, that, okay, Uma, you are going too hard on this for yourself. Can you take a step back and see how you can work on this? And the more I work on it for myself, the frustration on the other greatly drops for me. This is how it has worked for me. So I don't know if it makes sense. And again, saying this, I'm not able to do this 100% of the times. And I think I should not be able to do it 100% of the times, because then I will never grow or learn. I'll think that, that spiritual arrogance that will set in. So I shouldn't be able to do it 100% of the times. But to the extent that it gives me some amount of peace and helps me manage my life, if I'm able to do it, I think I am on the path and I'm trying to do that as much as I can. So if that adds any idea or any value to whatever questions you have, see how you want.
Thanks, Uma. I think the projection thing was very interesting, I think.
Yeah. And also the
Yeah.
last thing that she told, that she doesn't want it to happen 100% of the time. Actually, I correlated with that. No, she's also not sticking to that strong preference that I want it to happen. There itself, she is lightening. Okay, it's okay. That preference of being that also, she's not. I'm just extrapolating it. She's not sticking to that thing. It's fine if it doesn't happen. Otherwise, again, that itself, sometimes they say, being humble itself, that humility itself will start bringing that arrogance in you. That I'm very humble.
True. Chalo, I think with 10 minutes.
Nice, Aja. I think we should hold on to that question. And Uma also gave a wonderful answer. So let's see if we can discuss a bit more on what you have asked.
I think Bidan will always bring new and wonderful perspectives that none of us can think of. So we look forward to it.
Then let's explore it together. We'll have some nice discussions, I think, next week. All right then. Thank you so much. Let's end with a prayer.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next week
Thank
will be
you.
the last 3 verses of Dvitiya Adhyaya.
Yes.
So Jan 22nd, we start off with Tritiya Karma Yoga.
We should have a party in between that.
Yeah, I think so.
Uma, we need to plan for an offside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's see you then. Bye.
So last
you.
3
Bye.
verses. So we
Yeah.
finish with Sankhya Yoga.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night.